going on, everybody? Coach Gamble, man. Listen, our very first memory verse notes video. We're here. Here we go. I want to give you a quick reminder, as I did in class today. We always have 3 questions on our memory verse quizzes, right? Number 1, you have to quote the verse. Number 2, you have to explain the verse. And number 3, you have to show how you apply the verse to your life. So let's look at the verse. Our first verse is Philippians 1:27. And the New King James Version says, "Only let your conduct be worthy of the gospel of Christ." Now we're only doing the 8th portion of the verse, which means that's just the beginning portion. Should sound familiar because this is what Pastor Ramos talked to us about today, right? Living the story. Let me read it again. Only let your conduct be worthy of the gospel of Christ. Now, Philippians is a book written by the Apostle Paul, who was once the major leader of the church in its beginning stages, all right, the Apostle Paul. He's writing to the Christians at Philippi, and as he's in Rome, and he's going through some hardships, he's facing hardships, the church is facing hardships, and he's trying to encourage them to continue representing the church and Christ the right way. He's encouraging them not to be so discouraged by the challenges that he's facing and the challenges that they're facing. In fact, he tells them to live or conduct yourself in a way that is worthy or deserving or praiseworthy, in spite of the challenges, in a way that honors God. So, to the 21st century Christian, how does that relate to us? Paul is teaching us that our conduct matters. And in the 21st century, it's almost this idea that what we do doesn't matter. It really does matter. So Paul is challenging us that even though we face challenges or we're facing a culture that doesn't embrace us, our conduct and how we live matters. Now let me tell you something. Grace covers a multitude of sins. Love covers a multitude of sins. But we can't just do whatever we want to do and think it's okay with God. There are some things out here that God is displeased with. Never buy into the notion that it doesn't matter how we live our lives. Apostle Paul says here, no, live worthy. Why? Because it matters to somebody else. In order for us to spread the gospel, man, we've got to live a way that's showing that this gospel made a difference in our lives. So our conduct does matter. How we live, it matters. And I want you and I to start understanding that we'll never be perfect. Joyce Meyer said this. When I embraced a relationship with God, I realized the closer I got with him, the less or the few my sins became. Like they became few and far between the closer I got to Christ. So it's not about rules and regulations. It's more or less about getting close to Christ and having this relationship that is filtered through my everyday life. Did you get what I just said? You understand? So what I want you to get is this. Our conduct should represent Christ. Even when we make mistakes, even when we struggle and do wrong, how we deal with that by apologizing and saying my fault and getting rid of the pride, that shows that we're worthy of the gospel, of the grace of Jesus Christ. So we'll talk about this a little more in class. Take some really good notes, cross-reference, go and get you some Bible commentaries and add to this thing. But what we need to do, live the story.